It is time now for our rants and raves, and I'm going to start with Dan Kennedy.
I have a rant for Kate Arthur of BuzzFeed, who wrote a story this week that's gone kind of viral. The last I checked, it was approaching 1 million shares. She reported that Chip and Joanna Gaines, the host of one of the popular fix-up shows on HGTV, I forget the name of it. I guess it's Fixer Upper.
Yeah.
It's a good show, by the way.
My favorite show.
She reported that the Gaineses belong to this very conservative megachurch that holds some extremely ultra-conservative beliefs about LGBT rights, and they're very opposed to gay marriage. To which I say, so what? I mean, you know, they're not private individuals, they're public individuals, but they do an entertainment show, and I don't see any need to be trying to drag them through the mud.
Well, as you say, anything successful, you knew it was just a matter of time for
No,
those to
I
take
know,
down.
but I mean, you know, to hold them up to ridicule for their religious beliefs just seems to me to be beneath contempt.
If I understand, they were not interviewed, though. This is just an assumption because they're part of the church.
Well, they were asked to be interviewed, and they didn't. But that's their right.
Yeah.
That's their right.
All right, Kelly.
Joe Scarborough, you guys know I watch Joe Scarborough in the morning. I mean, he can go off the edge so many times. And this particular time, he went off the edge and accused Dean Baquet, who is the executive editor of the New York Times, this is a rant, by the way, of saying that he was going to be opposed to Donald Trump, and that was going to be his job and the job of the newspaper. And this was a story that Jim Rutenberg had written, and he accused him of being a part of it, and was forced to apologize and say, "Oops, no, he didn't really say that. That's not that." Dean Baquet never said anything close to that, and did in fact invite Jim Rutenberg onto the show to apologize. But my overarching point, aside from that more specific thing, is that he's really going over the edge. And I don't need for him to go over the edge. I need for him to stay somewhere.
He's been heading there for a while.
I know, but I listen to the show because I want a different point of view, but I don't need for him to be, exaggerating and making crazy.
Going over
Like,
the edge self.
Like Sean Hannity. Yeah.
Every now and then, okay, but it's just too much.
Yeah. All right, we have a twofer here, starting with you, Jennifer.
My rant is for Andrea Mitchell and NBC News generally, I would say, which in their coverage of the death of Cuban dictator Fidel Castro went overboard, in my view, in praising him as a man who was a towering figure, a voracious reader, very, very smart, and brought education and free health care to the people of Cuba, when in fact this man was a brutal and repressive dictator who left his country in every way worse off than when he came.
And then you got a second part of this.
Mine sort of bounces off that. A rave for Mark Mullen. He's a former ABC News correspondent, is now a local anchor out in San Diego, and he wrote this wonderful essay. His mother is a Cuban American, and he talked about how a lot of the coverage, as you pointed out, was off the mark.
Yeah.
And while much of his essay focused on U.S. policy in Cuba versus U.S. policy in China, he really focused on the fact that, we might be shining the light now that he's passed away on some of the good things that happen in Cuba, or that some people believe are the good things that happen in Cuba. But this is someone who caused a lot of pain for people in the country and those who fled the country. And as he pointed out, pain, anger for some of the folks in Cuba. And he said there hasn't been, quote, there hasn't been much romance in the reality of Cuban life under Fidel. And for that, he gets my rave.
Well, I was listening to NPR even this morning, and I was saying the same because I talked about it on radio today. They were talking about, the people in the streets and the weeping for days and days and days, and I felt incredulous.
Yeah,
like that the whole country couldn't possibly feel that way.
Exactly.
And how many of them were paid to go out there, right, or forced to go out there? I mean, Castro and his brother are famous for their dog and pony shows. None of this is real.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
And this really resonated with me. My dad was born in Cuba, about 30 miles away from where Fidel Castro was born, around the same time he was there. I visited Cuba about 1.5 years ago, and so I've been really focused on what has happened in the past in that island and where it's going. And so to see some of the praise for him, you can't ignore that some good things have happened, but it for many years it was difficult for people
I told
there.
my daughters, you can learn everything you need to know about a person's worldview by how they respond to the death of Fidel Castro.
Well, speaking of things that aren't real, we here have talked a lot about fake news recently, especially when it had to do with things that were critical of Hillary Clinton, like, FBI agent ended up dead after, the stuff that came out in leaked memos. Well, my rant is really for this pantsuit nation, which is this just unbelievable, sad sack stories. People like their transgender son can't go to, their mother won't let them go to Thanksgiving dinner. It's one story out of this. Besides the fact that I feel like most of them are probably made up, they're blaming Donald Trump, the aftermath of Donald Trump for this. And it just feels like, Callie, you've taken me on this. I don't know how it ended up in my news feed, but I get it. It's supposed to be something that you get delivered or you have to sign up for. It shows up in my news feed, and it's one story after the other about all these,
So let me just correct and say it's not supposed to be in your newsfeed. It's an invite-only Facebook community by which people can share with each other some of what they felt.
I've never liked or shared.
Well,
so.
but what I'm saying is it's not for you to respond to. Right. These are these people's personal stories. So
I'm questioning those stories. That's my rant. I am questioning those. The veracity.
You can't question people's experiences.
The veracity.
It's because it's not. You could question if it was meant to go out. It's not meant to go out.
I'm just saying. I don't believe
it's for people to talk to each other.
All right.